welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, my name is Court. If you have been here, thank you so much for coming back. Today, we will be wrapping up the 8 books I read in November. Now, if you know me, you know 8 is a small number of books to read in a month. However, November, I hit a very big book slump, and with the holiday coming and my job moving offices, I did not read as much as I usually do. However, this is not to say that if you only read 8 books, that is bad. It's quality over quantity in my eyes when reading books. I would much rather have a great time reading and read less amount of books than read 500 books and not like any of them. You know what I mean? So however many books you read, 1 book this month, 0 books this month, but you started one, I'm there too. I started a few that I didn't finish this month too. We're all there. As long as we're reading and yapping about books, that is all that matters. It doesn't matter how much you read, what format you read them on. As long as we find joy in reading, it doesn't matter how much we read or what we're reading on. Per se, audiobooks count as reading and I will die on that hill. So I only read 8 books this month, but I did read some big books and I started a rather large book as well, and I'm gonna get into all of that. But first, we're gonna go through my November statistics. Out of the 8 books that I read, 3 were fantasy, 4 were romance, and I read 1 horror book. I read a total of 3,444 pages and my average rating was 3.82. So I don't have every physical book that I read, but I do have quite a few. So we're gonna get into the physical books that I read, and I'll tell you how I read them because I may own all these physical books, but I did not read a single one in physical format. I definitely either audiobooked them or read them on my Kindle. The first book I finished in November was Phantasma. This was my book club's October pick. I was super excited going into this book. I heard it had trials. I heard it was the new fantasy book of the winter. I had such high expectations and that might be my fault, but I was so excited going into this book and that my book club picked it for October. When I started it on my Kindle and I got probably 60% to 70% through this book, and then I had to switch to audio because it was just kind of drawn out. It was dragging a bit and it seemed very repetitive. Like my book club said, everything felt very easy for the female main character in this book. It was like everything was just handed to her in this book. I did end up giving this book a 3.5. I guessed how it ended. However, I did like it enough to want to read the next book. I'm hoping that it's better than this. I heard that it's also going to be longer, which I think this book was too long in the first place. I know it's about the sister and I'm hoping that it's better. I feel like we kind of lost the plot along the way and there was a lot of spice in this book where there didn't need to be, that could have been cut down. I was there for the trials, I was there for the game, I was there for the fantasy of it all. Not a lot of people did guess the ending though, so I don't think it's an easy ending to guess. I just happened to be like, oh, I wonder if this is what's gonna happen. And it did. Unfortunately, that's just the way it goes sometimes when you're reading a book. I am looking forward to the next one, but I'm not holding as high as expectations as I did for this one. That's for sure. But I had a good time. I'm really glad that I got to discuss it with my book club because there was a lot of differing opinions on this one. But please don't let that dissuade you from reading it because a lot of people still did love this in my book club. If you want to give this one a try, I do recommend it. I liked it up until about the 60% mark and then it started falling off. So we'll see how the next one turns out. I'm not sure if this author has anything else out. One thing I really do love about the physical copy of this book is how everything is kind of separated into parts with the page overlay. So it doesn't say if she has written anything else. I don't think she has. I would like to read her other writing because I did like her writing style. It was just the execution of this plot, and I did like what the plot was giving in the beginning. It just kind of fell off. Then I listened to Just Between Us. This was actually a reread. I read this when it came out a year or two ago, and then the audio recently came out for this book, and so I wanted to listen to it because this is just a perfect cutesy fall book, and I love this couple so much. This is a part of the Just Us series, I believe. I believe that's what the series is called, Just Us. This is the only one I've read out of the series. This is the middle book. There's 2 other books in this series that I would like to read as well because I do love Madison's writing a lot. This book follows Ellie and Camden. Ellie is a property manager at this apartment complex, and Camden has just moved into town to work here for the time being. And Ellie's parents also own this property, so she's working at the property basically for her parents and under her parents. They have a strict rule where you're not supposed to be friends or anything with the tenants of any of the apartment complexes that you're working at. Well, Camden and Ellie just so happen to keep bumping into each other. This small town is hosting their big fall events, festivals, whatever you want to call them, and Ellie and Camden just keep running into each other. They try to avoid being friends or having any kind of attachment because Ellie's not allowed to be friends or fraternize with any of the property tenants. Being friends, when you're in such a small town, there's only so much that you can see of each other, and I loved the fall vibes of this. The only dislike I have about this is the parents, Ellie's parents in this book, but you're supposed to hate them, so it's a push and pull with that. Such a sweet romance. There's no spice in this book. I don't believe there's any spice in the rest of the series either. If you're looking for a no spice closed door series, this is one for you. But I'm really happy I reread this. It's going to be one of my favorite fall reads for a long time. It just has all of the perfectly fall aesthetic vibes that you're looking for. I just always gravitate towards it for the fall. And then I picked up my November book club book, one of them, because we did have two, and the other one I actually finished in December, so you'll see that in December's wrap up. However, that book club pick was Lost and Lassoed by Lassoed. I gave this a 4.75. It was so close to a 5-star. I just did not have the 5-star feeling, but this is my favorite out of the Rebel Blue Ranch series, and if you know me, I am not a cowboy romance fan. I DNF'd Flawless. I haven't liked the Chestnut Spring series. I'm planning to retry after liking Rebel Blue Ranch, but any other cowboy romance I don't gravitate towards, I don't pick up, but I do want to get into them. But something about this series, I am obsessed. The first one I gave like a 3-star. The second one I gave like a 4 or 4.5. This one is a 4.75, and I am highly anticipating Wild and Wrangled, I believe, that comes out in April. I just love how in-depth the found family is now that we're so far into the series. I love the small town. I love the banter between Gus and Teddy. And I'm not usually one to like a kid in a book, but I loved Riley in this book. She was so mature. She was a perfect addition to the story. I loved Teddy and her dad's relationship in this book. There's just so many mature relationships in this book that I really loved and I really related to. Teddy is probably the closest I've related to somebody in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. So I think that's why I also really liked this one the most. I listened to this one. I heard it is very similar to Heartless by Elsie Silver, if you've read that. Like almost extremely similar. So I am kind of excited to get back into the Chestnut Spring series someday, and hopefully I will like it this time around now that I like this and I've heard that it's similar. However, this one was just so good. I related to it. I was laughing out loud when I was listening to it, and I cannot wait for the next one in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. Then I read my one horror book for November, which was This Wretched Valley by Jenny Kiefer. I believe that's how you say her last name. This follows a group of 4 people who go on this rock climbing trip. One of the guys is working on his dissertation project, and he invites 2 rock climbers that are a couple to help him with this dissertation, and then another like field guide who is also a PhD candidate at his school. So it's this 4 group of friends who go out to this valley that's in the middle of nowhere, and on the way there, this woman warns them. They're like, people go in there and they come out not being the same, or they come out not like you never see them again. They get a bunch of warnings, a bunch of weird things about this valley has happened in the beginning, like the prologue of this book with them trying to find this place. There's just a bunch of eerie things going on. The eerie vibes are immaculate. I was scared to my core reading this, and just as the book progressed, I got more scared and more scared. I literally had to put this book down and like like recenter myself with reality because I was so scared. And I don't get scared easily. And it wasn't that I was necessarily scared, but this is gruesome. Like, this is heavy. So I would definitely check triggers if you have any triggers, or if you do get scared easily. I would not necessarily pick this one up. But if you're an avid horror fan and you're looking for something gruesome and gripping, this is a book for you. I rated this 4 stars. This would have been a 5-star if the middle little bit didn't lose the pacing. The beginning was rather gripping and exciting, and then the middle kind of lost pacing a little bit, and you just kind of get little instances here and there of the scary bits. But the end is out of this world amazing. Had me on the edge of my seat, had to finish it in one sitting. It was so good. I loved this book. I need more recs like this. If you've read anything like this or have any horror recs for me, please leave them in the comments. I love things like this. I read this on my Kindle because I got a copy from Libby, and it has those scientific elements in it too, and it's so well researched because I do believe she's an actual rock climber. Yeah, the author's an actual rock climber. So everything was so well researched and everything was so well written in this book that it just had me on the edge of my seat. Besides the little middle pacing where it lost like its flow a little bit, it was so good. 4 stars, amazing, out of this world. I need more horror that is exactly like this. Then I got an e-arc of Grave Matter by Karina Hale. I'm not sure how you say her last name. However, I was graciously gifted an e-arc copy of this book, and I didn't like it. I gave this book 1 star. I also read this with some people from my book club. It has the teacher-student trope, which is one I do not like, and I have never found a book that I will read with that trope and have liked. The plot was rather predictable and very cringy to me. I thought it was going to be more science fiction, fantasy-esque about mushrooms and nature and forging, things like that relating to the science of it all. However, it was more about being confused and a lot of spicy scenes. That's really all that it was. And other than that, I can't really remember other than guessing a lot of the ending. This was my first Karina Hale book. I'm not sure if I'm going to read another one. If you've read any of her other works and like them, please let me know. I will try another book, but unfortunately this one didn't work for me. I know a lot of people who loved this book, and I know a lot of people who didn't love this book. And I feel like that's a lot of ways with her books. I've heard either love them or you hate them. Then I read another Kindle arc, which is When the Fake Snow Falls by Heather Garvin. Heather Garvin has easily become one of my favorite authors this year. I read her Just Yours duet and absolutely fell in love with her writing. She has immaculate, mature writing, and I absolutely eat it up every single time. I rated this one a 4.5. It's a perfect Hallmarky type book. It has a little bit of spice, lots of sarcasm. It's just the perfect romance for the winter time. I read it in like a day and a half. I was obsessed with it. The female main character of this book is also very relatable because she's learning to trust, and you kind of follow her path as she's learning to trust in these different ways with the male main character and some of her other relationships. So it was really nice to see that, and the delicacy that it was handled in the writing style and in the book was just a breath of fresh air, and I absolutely loved it. 4.5. I will read anything Heather writes, and if you're looking for a perfect little winter book to read, it is set in Florida, so that's why it's called Fake Snow. I just ate it up. I love it so much. I highly recommend this one. Now we're going to get into the last 2 books that I read this month, and some of you may be surprised, and some of you aren't going to be surprised at all of what these are. It's the Tandem Read. I read the Tandem Read from Tone of Glass in the month of November. All 13 or 1400 or so pages of this Tandem Read, I read it, but I read it on my Kindle. And I don't want to spoil the series, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about these, but I'll give you my ratings and kind of a little tiny rundown. First, we have Empire of Storms. Empire of Storms I gave 5 stars. This is easily one of my new favorite books. I think about this book all the time. I wanted to go right into Kingdom of Ash. I've had to hold myself back. I am trying to finish some other books before I start Kingdom of Ash, but I've literally had to hold myself back. This book is everything to me. I loved it so much. I can't tell you how much I absolutely adore this book. This and Queen of Shadows are my favorite in the series so far. I can't tell you which one is number 1 and which one is number 2, but just know that this one and Queen of Shadows are my favorite. I could have read this on my own. I'm glad I didn't, because I couldn't have gotten through Tower of Dawn without this. And I'm glad I tandem read them so I didn't have to go through Tower of Dawn before I got into Kingdom of Ash, because that would have been terrible. This made me really excited to finish the series, even though I'm so sad that it's ending. I cannot wait. This was just like a tiny glimpse of what Kingdom of Ash is, I've heard, and I need more immediately. It's everything I wanted in a fantasy book. It has all my favorite characters ever in it. It's just perfect. Then we have Tower of Dawn. Tower of Dawn I gave 4 stars because I couldn't fathom giving it anything lower. It is a well-written book, and it is necessary, and I cannot believe people skip this book and go straight to Kingdom of Ash that don't tandem read this and Empire Storms. That's crazy. However, I am a Kale hater. I do not like him in this series, and I did not think that this redeemed him at all. I did see how this book was very necessary to the rest of the series, and I liked some of the side stories that you get in this book, so it's necessary. Please read it. I needed to tandem read it, otherwise I would have drug on through this book and not finished it for a very long time. Some of the things that you learn in this book are very, very important. Did there need to be a whole book? No, probably not. Was it still well written? And I still ate up the side stories, and I still am super excited for Kingdom of Ash. Yes. So 4 stars. Other than that, this was my first tandem read, so I'm very excited that I did get to tandem read, and I really kind of want to do it again. It was such a fun experience reading 2 books at the same time. I felt so accomplished after finishing, because you finish 2 books for basically the price of 1. I am really glad I read it on my Kindle because these are super heavy. I really enjoyed them, and I'm super excited to finish the Throne of Glass series in December, and this just made me super excited for Kingdom of Ash. But I'm so sad that the series is coming to an end. It feels like it's like a part of my daily life now. I think about it every single day, and I've been reading Assassin's Blade since like March is when I started Assassin's Blade. So I've been reading the series since March. That's crazy to think that it's almost over. But I love the series so much, and I'm really excited to finish, and I'm really happy with my choice to tandem read. So if you're thinking about tandem reading, here is your recommendation to do so. I just want to go over a few of the books that I did start in November that I didn't finish. These are not DNFs. I'm currently in the middle of them, but I just wanted to briefly touch on them. First is Heartless Hunter. I am about 60% of the way through Heartless Hunter. I'm very excited to be reading this. My final thoughts will come in my December wrap up, but I did start this and read most of the 60% in November. This is about the witch and the witch hunter, and that's all I really know. Can't really tell you more without spoiling a lot of things, so just know that I'm not really enjoying my time. That's why I haven't finished it, but I'm hoping that the last 40% really picks up and makes me excited to read the second one. I also started The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I want to say I'm about 40% through this book. I am loving it so far. It's just like If We Were Villains. If We Were Villains is one of my favorite books. I cannot wait to pick this book back up, but I need to be in the right mindset and have time to actually sit down and read this book, because I want to physically underline and annotate this book as well. So I just haven't had the time to actually sit down and read this book. So that's why it's not finished yet. And finally, on my Kindle, I started 11/22/63 by Stephen King. I wanted to finish this in November because it's set in November. It's about a man who goes back in time to stop the JFK assassination. However, the time travel portal that he has to go through only starts in like 1958. So he has to live so many years in the past and prepare in the past to stop this assassination and figure out how much of the actual assassination truths that we were told are actually true, and kind of what was fake, and if there was a patsy and all of that kind of stuff. I'm enjoying it so much so far. However, this book does have 866 pages, so it is taking me some time to get through. With my book slump, I wanted to pick this up and I really did want to read this. I just didn't have time, and I got really sick, so I couldn't put in the effort to read this book, but I am almost done with this. I am about 70% through, so I'm gonna finish it this week, and I can't wait to share my thoughts on this one in my December wrap up as well. So those are all the books that I read in November and started in November, so you get a little sneak peek for December's reading. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, subscribe, share this video with your friends. Please please leave me a comment on what you read in November, what your favorite book of November was. I'd be so happy to discuss with you in the comments. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. The air kicked on. My voice is going away. I'm so sorry. Let me itch my foot.